Oh, hey, there we are. Laura, Zini, and whoever else is watching. I'm assuming my ma'am is one of them. Amy, hello. I need to blow my nose, so let's get started with the feedings of the fish right away. You may have already noticed we're underway on a big water change on the discus tank. There's no more eggs in there tonight, so there's no point in putting the water change off any longer. And of course, these guys are all right up here in the corner where they're always waiting to get their nummies. You can see my one kayak out there in the middle of the lake. Got the other one over here pulled up tight on the shoreline, if you see it over here in the shade. And then, of course, the other one is the bright green neon one out there, parked out in the sunshine, enjoying the afternoon. All right. Let me see if anyone has joined us. Hey, Neil, how are you this evening? And my phone just made an alert in the other room. I think I know what it is, though. I think somebody posted a YouTube video. Oh, nope, it was a message. Hang on, let me see what my message is. Oh, it's my mom saying hello. So I sent her a smiley face back. I don't know if you've noticed when I start my live streams, I always start by, well, I don't always, but I usually, if I'm thinking about it, I'll start by giving a tug on my ear. That is just me saying hello to my mom. I know she watches just to support me and give me the views, but she wisely keeps the volume turned down. Bob! Neil! Got good music tonight, but we'll have to wait till we got some more people joining in. Tonight's music was actually inspired by our dear Zini. And speaking of Zini, he turned me on to a couple of old dudes that could lay down some rap. I was really surprised. What was it, Pete and Boz? I thought it was going to be a joke at first. I thought they were just going to kind of, I could see the setup. It was obvious what was about to happen, but I just thought they were going to, like, I don't know, just sound like a couple of old dudes making fun of rap or whatever. But they were fucking really good. It was actually kind of hard for me. I went back to what I was originally listening to. I just popped over to see what he had mentioned, and it was hard for me to turn it off and go back to what I was originally listening to, because what I was originally listening to was very, very a different vibe than Pete and Baz, or Pete and Baz, however you pronounce that. But I will definitely be giving them a listen again in the future. They're fucking killing me. Daniel, hello. Are you putting the A in quotes because it's bass? Or are you trying to do like a long A? Is that what you're saying, Pete and bass? Not Baz. These are beautiful koi. No sheep sounds. Well, that's disappointing. Pete and Bays. All right. Well, if you want to hear good sheep sounds in music, listen to Pink Floyd's Animals, because Animals has lots of sheep sounds in it. In fact, some of the songs are actually called Sheep. All right, I'm still working on this big old pile of goo here. It's almost full, but if you'll remember the other night, this is the one that I couldn't quite get the container closed because it was overflowing the top. So you can see how much I've gone through, but you can see how much I still have left. So we're going to keep on working on that tonight because this is delish, and it is definitely the top shelfiest stuff I've got at the moment. These koi are some greedy little buggers. They just never go away. They keep waiting for more food. As long as I'm standing here, they keep thinking I'm going to feed them again. You 40-gallon scape, nice. Well, we're doing a big ass water change right now on the discus tank. I'm going to get in there in a minute and get the glass wiped down. Some Motown, nope. Definitely on the wrong track there. We got some bullshit music tonight to listen to. We'll wait and see if Mike shows up here after a little bit. Well, we will definitely get to see the discus, but at the moment, the discus are indisposed because their tank is currently being drained of water. I'm going to get in there, like I said, and get that glass wiped down. In fact, I'm going to do that right now while I get you over here watching my other goldfish, my fancy goldfish. These put their little pinkies up when they drink their tea. And that's how you know they're fancy. Now, Wednesday's little white mark that she had going on with the near her tail fin is gone, but it almost looks like she has like a white haze on her in a few spots here and there. It's not, doesn't look the same as the thing did before, but I don't know. It makes me wonder if there's not something on her skin. So I did a water change recently. I'm gonna do another one here fairly soon, so I don't go so long between water changes in this tank. I've been keeping up on the filters for the most part. They're clean enough that we're getting biological filtration going on. You can see the water's crystal clear. There's obviously no ammonia or anything like that, so I'm not concerned about that. I don't know. It just looks like she's got this sort of white haze on her in a few spots. And if it is something growing on her skin, I'm not sure where it's coming from or why it's continuing to do so, even after my treatments and water changes and whatnot. Sweet. I have lost 12 fans in the last 3 or 4 days. I'm starting to get depressed, and I actually just picked up 2 new fans in the last 15 minutes. I was just saying to a buddy of mine this afternoon that I'm trying not to get down about it because it comes and goes in waves. I'll have a whole bunch of fans sign up all at once, and then a week or two will go by, I'll get nothing, and then a bunch will start dropping off, and then a bunch of new people will sign up. So, yay. Oh, the Four Tops had a lot of hits. So did Earth, Wind, and Fire. I listened to a lot of Motown. I'm not knocking Motown. I'm just saying tonight's music was a far, far cry from Motown music. tonight's music is definitely not Motown. Yeah, the Temptations had some bangers. There's a bajillion people that came out of Motown that had a lot of bangers. There's a bunch of Motown stuff you've probably never even heard that's fantastic out there, which is usually the case. The stuff we're more familiar with a lot of times isn't even necessarily a band's best work. It's just their most popular, and most popular doesn't necessarily always translates to best. It's just what fits on the radio. I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into making a song popular, but don't necessarily mean it's one of the better songs on the album. All right, if you want to witness the cleaning of the glass, because a lot of this is going to have to get knocked down and out of the way. I don't have to do too much in the way of cleaning on this end because of, well, all the vegetation you can see does a pretty significant job at blocking the light from getting down into the lower portions of the tank. And by lower portions of the tank, I mean under the surface of the water. All right. You get the idea. So we'll give Mike, it's only 10 after 8. We'll give Mike a little bit of time because I know he likes to play the music game. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to guess tonight's music or not. You might, especially if you remember the 90s. And I was saying something about the genre of music to my wife before I came down, and she gave me a puzzled look. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't really call them that either, but I said I'm going through for my live stream because I don't know what else to call them. So they are a little bit difficult to pin down as far as a genre. That in itself is your first clue as to who I was listening to. In fact, that almost was a description of the band's name in itself. Ouch, that was my elbow. All right, everybody, I'm down in the corner here. I'm holding the tank lid up with my head. I'm holding the siphon in my left hand. I'm trying to wipe the glass down with my right hand. I got stupid rainbow fish who are coming over to see what I'm doing. So bear with me here a minute. And we'll get back to filling this tank back up here soon. I don't really need to drain it all the way down tonight. That's good enough, as long as the glass is fairly clean. Whew. It was like work. It was more like work than my actual job. All right, let me see where I was. I mentioned animals a little while ago, Steve, when we were talking about the sheep noises. Christopher, hello. Mike, you are here. I've been waiting for you to see about the music. Nope, not Stone Temple Pilots. Ooh, not Primus, but Primus is a good one. I do listen to Primus occasionally. Metal is your favorite Pink Floyd? Hey, Hamilton, how are you? I like metal, but I actually had metal on vinyl until not too long ago. I gave it to a buddy of mine. Primus, I don't know if I'd call Primus interesting necessarily. They're fun. And I think that's kind of the whole point, is they're meant to be sort of a musical punchline. They're fun. They're almost meant to be a musical joke. He uses the bass as his lead guitar. Their songs are just goofy and weird. And I'm not sure if they're still together. I know last one time when he was asked how long he was going to stay, keep doing the Primus thing, he basically said as long as it stayed fun, as long as he still enjoyed doing it, he was going to keep doing it. And I recall not too long ago having heard him say something about him not having fun with it anymore. It was starting to not be fun. Hey, Mandarin. Pucifer, I don't even know that one. Arc Knight, 30 months. All right, so since Mike is now here, tonight's music was, as I said, a little hard to describe. Not really sure what genre exactly I would put it into, but for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to start with bullshit, new age bullshit. So think new age bullshit music. But think new age bullshit with a really, really sick bass line. Nice, deep, heavy bass in it. And then overlay real breathy, sexy vocals, often sung in French. And then sprinkle in some Gregorian chant on top of that. A little dash of Gregorian chant music in there. Not Ace of Base. That's another. Ace of Base was like a wannabe ABBA. They tried so hard to be ABBA. No, not Enya, but you're so damn close, Christopher. Quackalus, are fish cooler fried? I would imagine they're hotter if you fried them. Nope, not Blondie. Remember, this band is difficult to describe because they don't particularly fit into any category. That would almost make this band what? Ace of Base couldn't tie ABBA's shoe. Duran Duran, that's a good one. Shit, Duran Duran's still putting out music. I guess 80s was their heyday. And when I think Duran Duran, I definitely think 80s. I'll agree with you on that one. But Duran Duran is actually still putting music out. I just listened to some of their new stuff not long ago. Your band Jealousy is showing again, Steve. I will also say, just for Zini's sake, because I don't know if anybody else will remember this, it's a new word that he learned from me in last week's live stream. Amethystium? No, never heard of that one. Well, their song about Napoleon's not even accurate. They said that he surrendered at Waterloo, and that's not where he surrendered. He surrendered like a week after that or something. I don't remember the details, but I know that he didn't actually surrender at Waterloo. The ABBA song I like that I think is just out of left field and never makes sense is the song Fernando. You listen to it, and it's weird. It's a song that's about the Mexican-American War, and they did it not for a Mexican audience, but for the American audience. They thought that like they were going to sing something like, patriotic and something that's part of our history and something Americans would relate to. They treated it as though they were singing a song about like the Boston Tea Party or the Revolutionary War or something. And it's the song Fernando is literally about the Mexican War. It's about a couple of old soldiers, old Mexican soldiers to boot, that got together like later in life, like at the old soldiers' home, and were like reminiscing about their days in the Mexican War. And they really thought that was going to be a popular song in America. Well, it was a popular song everywhere. But not because of that. I don't think most Americans had any idea that that's what that song was supposed to be sung about. It's just a good song, but that was a wild one. But they were a Swedish band that don't even speak English, so what the fuck do they know about our culture and all that stuff? They were just trying to make some pop music that was going to sell and make them money. And boy, did they. Heavyweight. All right, let me see where I was. I'm missing some stop signs back here. Quaz, how are you? Art of Noise. Another good guess, but nope. I don't think I've ever had the caddisfly nymphs. Definitely not Tenacious D. There you go, Christopher. You got it. Enigma. No, not the Screaming Trees. The band that is kind of hard to describe and doesn't really fit into any genre and is a bit of a sort of tough one is an Enigma. I think it's just some French dude. Yeah, the Russians are definitely hard to defeat, especially when you try to do it in winter. My striped Raphael was probably He was getting bigger by the end of his first year. By the end of his second year, he was getting moved out of his 29. So, I mean, he still wasn't huge by 18 months or 2 years. He was getting there. By 2.5 to 3 years, though, he was starting to get sizable, I would say. Mel and Heavyweight, don't know if I said hi to you. Yeah, you were. I could tell you were on the right. You were sniffing in the right direction, Christopher. You were hitting all around the fucking bullseye. Any one of those bands is almost, but not quite, interchangeable with Enigma. Or if you're the kind of person that listens to Enigma, you would also listen to the Art of Noise or whatever. And I do listen to all the bands you mentioned. You did say your mind was an enigma on the last stream, and I actually wondered about that when you said that. I was wondering if you said it deliberately or if you said it subconsciously or whatever. But I had just on the previous stream had referred to Zini's enigmatic eyes, and he didn't know what enigma was, or he didn't know what enigmatic meant. And I said to look up enigma, and you'll figure out what enigmatic means. Just giving you a look at how low we're actually going with the water. This end looks a lot shallower, mainly because the tank is slightly tilted, so it technically is shallower at this end. But look how high up the substrate is. It's several inches above where the black plastic is. Let me turn that light on. You can actually see the black plastic a little better. Look at how much soil and everything's built up on this end versus down here. We're not, the gravel doesn't even get to the black line, and so it looks much deeper down here. It looks like we still got 8 inches of water, but when we look down at this end, it looks more like, oh look, there's one of them tiny little platies. This end looks more like it's got about 3 inches of water left in it. So we are going to drain a little more out of it, but not a whole lot. Oh, and before we got started on this, when I was looking in here, swimming around in all of this moss right here was I saw a little orange thing. I couldn't remember whether I put shrimp in this tank or not, and I didn't know if I was seeing like a little sort of dead bit off the edge. I think I can see one right there, but that's what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see. Can you you can kind of see it right. Let me get my finger on the screen. Right about here, you can kind of see like a little orange thing in the green. I saw something like that, and I went and double checked, and it dashed out of the way when I put my finger near it. So we still, and then I saw a couple more. So we definitely have shrimp still living in this tank. I put a bunch of them in there, assuming that with all of those places to hide, they wouldn't just get gobbled up by the fish, and it seems to be holding true. So we've still got some shrimp in there. So if we've still got shrimp in there, we definitely are still going to have shrimp in here, because this tank, oh look, there's another little baby platy right there. So I've got them breeding in this tank too. So you can imagine how shrimps could easily hide in this tank. I mean, that goes all the way back for the most part. So if you were a little shrimp and you wanted to hide from a predatory fish, you'd have no problem doing so in this tank. Oh, just got another notification. I'm going to have to go check. I'm excited now. See if I don't get a whole bunch of fans rolling in all at once. All right, let me go throw some food in there. Actually, you know what? Just sit tight for a minute. I'm going to go reverse the water flow. No, I'll do the food first because that'll take less time. I'll be done in a second, and then I'll go do the water flow. All right, there's food. Let me go look at my water flow here. That was just some stupid notification from Samsung. All right, and I did put a little wire in here with a slip knot in it so that when I put my hose in the drain, it's a little more of a pain in the ass. I can't just lay it in the drain and pick it up. I have to slide it through the little slip knot thing and tie it down, and then when I get it out, I got to loosen it and slide it back out. But it will definitely prevent the cat from knocking it out onto the floor like happened last time. It's happened twice. The first time I noticed immediately, and it wasn't a big deal. I was able to just grab the hose and throw it back in. But the last time the cat knocked the hose out of the drain, it was probably 10 solid minutes of the tank draining onto my floor in the basement in the other room. And got a lot of water in the basement. I don't want to do that again. Must be one hell of a neon. Cereal milk. That sounds good. I'm not a huge fan of the vape cartridges. Steve had some weed the other day that has convinced me that I want to get the seeds. He had some Romulan. He had a joint, and it was so good, both in flavor and in experience. So my experience is if I like something I've gotten from a store and I grow it myself, it's even better if I grow it myself. And I've always wanted to grow the Romulan seeds. But if I remember correctly, the Romulan is more of a connoisseur sort of weed. You don't get big, dense, heavy buds and all that kind of stuff. You're going to get a sort of lacy, leggy, sativa type, growth pattern with small buds all over it. So you're not going to get a big yield out of it, but it's just like chef's kiss quality. So the joint he had definitely met that criteria. So I definitely think I want to try to find some Romulan seed. Yeah, I can grow Ludwigia. I have some Ludwigia in the other room, I think. Don't have any pearlweed. Are you familiar with Sammy the Salmon, Christopher? Oh God, Mandarin! I've seen so many different little squiggly things swimming around in ponds and lakes and whatnot over the years. I'm sure I've seen caddisfly nymphs and any kind of nymph you can imagine. Christopher, if you're not familiar with Sammy the Salmon, look up the Chemical Brothers. I think it is called the Salmon Dance. But do another dab before you watch the video. Speaking of doing another dab, I'm going to do me another dab right now. And while I know a little dab will do you, I'm going to do a big one. And I don't know if you're going to notice when I sit down in front of the camera or not, but I got some sun the other day when I went out on the kayak, and I had enough sense to slather up with the old sunblock. I sprayed it all over me, but I pretty much always wear a hat, and I took my hat off just to get some sun on my head to take the shine off a little bit. And I'll just say that the sun is a lot stronger in May than I remember it, because I don't feel like I was out in the sun for that long. But when I was coming home yesterday, I was like, oh man, I had such a headache. And then when I went into the bathroom to get in the shower and the water hit my head, I was just like, oh my God, it hurt. And I looked in the mirror and I realized how pink my head was. So I didn't shave tonight because there's no fucking way I'm dragging a razor over this because it hurts just to touch it. Yeah, I thought it was called Salmon Dance. Mountain Greenery, how are you? Mel, are you still watching? Because your fishy is on the screen right now. Sort of. Let me move the camera around so we can get him better on the screen a little bit. So there's your beloved, whatever you've called him. Well, based on how much I got on the top of my head yesterday, that's going to cost me a lot of money. also brought, there it is. I was gonna say, I know I brought a final cup of coffee down here tonight. And I also have another gripe that I'm going to gripe about. I was talking with Zini earlier, and this came up in conversation. And this is something I always want to gripe about, but it never really is pertinent to anything, and it's not, as is the case now. But at some point, you just got to bring it up and start yelling about it. We were talking about the way people pronounce things differently over here versus the UK or London or wherever. And some of the stuff gets on my nerves in an amusing sort of way. My personal pet peeve is when people change the TH sound to an F. Like instead of think, they say fink. And I hate that. I don't know why I hate that so much, but God, I hate that. It's almost a funny kind of thing, though. My buddy hates when people say tuna fish instead of tuna fish. They pronounce it with like a CH instead of a T. That's a funny one. I'd never realized that until he said something. And once he's brought it up, I'm on the listen for it now. I'm waiting to hear somebody. I haven't heard anybody say tuna fish since then. So I don't know how. I've never picked up on the CH in tuna fish before. But I can kind of see where he's going with it. So I'm waiting to hear somebody say that. But the one that absolutely drives me mad, because I don't think this is just a matter of accent. I think this is technically just wrong. And it is when people call the letter Z a Z. It is not Z. It is a Z. It is not a matter of opinion. It is not a matter of you say it one way, we say it the other. Z is just fucking wrong. And people need to stop saying it. It is not Z. Z is a name or possibly a word, but it's not a letter. Think about it. Every other letter in the entire alphabet contains itself and only itself. It does not contain an additional letter sound. There's no bed, there's no said, there's no dead, there's no ed, there's no fed. S, it sounds like S. M sounds like M. E, D, V, G, all of them sound like the letter they are and end in an E sound, because a G ends in an E sound, and a E ends in an E sound. V ends in an E sound. So you get to the last letter of the alphabet and suddenly it's a fucking name. Z, where'd the D come from? Why does it have a D on the end of it? There's no other letter in the entire alphabet that could be pronounced as a word in itself with a second consonant in it. It's Z. It's not Z. The first time I ever heard that was on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the 1981 BBC miniseries, and they were talking about being in one of the zones in the galaxy. It was ZZ9 plural Z alpha was the zone they were in. And I just grew up believing the way they said ZZ9 was the same way you use like the phonetic alphabet, where you'll say like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. I just assumed Z was the Z that they were saying in this thing. I had no idea that they were actually pronouncing it as though that was the letter. Like when you see it written in the book, it's just ZZ9, plural Z alpha. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I heard other people say Z that I began to realize, like, they think that's the letter. They think that's how the letter's pronounced. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Who thinks it's Z? And then apparently, as I got even older, I found out a lot of fucking people think it's Z. Most people in Canada seem to think it's Z. Most people in Australia seem to think it's Z. And of course, everybody across the pond seems to think it's Z. It's not. It's Z. Stop saying Z. Oh, hey, Mal, there you go. Z is dead. Exactly. Z is dead, baby. Hey, Robert. Put a B in the place of Banda? No, banana instead of banana. I got you. Water and wash fuck with you? What do you mean, like the way people pronounce it? I do say water. I definitely have the Baltimore accent. I don't say water and I don't say wash. I don't put the R in there. I do say water. I pronounce it as though it's spelled Wooder, water. I cannot break myself from saying that. I've broken myself from saying a lot of other things very Baltimorean, and they just sound more proper when I say them correctly. Water to me, like I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce it correctly. If I say water, that sounds so fucking dumb. I would just rather say water and have people think I'm from Baltimore. Just saying water sounds really weird. It sounds like I'm saying it wrong. I know that's how it's written. But I will give you Brits one thing. You do pronounce zebra correctly. We shouldn't pronounce it zebra because of the way it's spelled. It should be pronounced zebra with the one B, etc. What's the other one? We say yogurt, and really, technically, based on the way it's spelled, should be yogurt. And you guys pronounce it yogurt, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which again sounds weird. I will still say yogurt. But I do say water. I do say wash, though. I say wash correctly. Zinc is the one that kills me when people are talking about like the kitchen zinc, where you go wash your hands in the zinc. You have pronounced something correctly. And don't get me wrong, I defer to the English for imagine the English language. Like I get it. It's the English language. You guys are the ones that made it up. We came here, we made it American and Americanized and all that. I get it. I'm not arguing with any of that stuff. If you want to call an elevator a lift, you go right ahead. But when it comes to Zed, I don't know why you're just wrong about it. I don't know why you've made up this new word and called it a letter, but you're wrong about that one. And I mean you personally, Zini. You need to get on the horn with somebody and let them know they've made a mistake and they need to correct that immediately. And if they don't, I'm going to hold you responsible for it. And that goes for Canada and Australia too. You got to do them all. I will, however, let you keep saying Fink and fought. No, it doesn't feel like it's rubbing on my shirt. That's me tapping on it. Could you hear me banging on it with my finger? Well, I don't know what to tell you about the audio, everybody. It's just going to do that when it does that. I mean, when I moved the thing around, you might have got some static, but both the jacks are plugged in nice and tight. Yeah, my jack is plugged in nice and tight. So I don't know where the... I'm not getting all my messages on my tablet here, so something has changed. Let me switch back to all messages. No, that's top messages. I don't want to do that. I want to go to all messages. You always pronounce your TH? Rubbing on my ears. Do I have a cheap turntable and a microphone? Cheap sunglasses. I could do some ZZ Top. Yeah, I was just thinking, Mel, that if I'm going to have a moth going to town on my microphone, I should have my little windsock on it so the moth has something to hang on to. All right, well, maybe it's this tank. Let's try moving it over here. We'll feed the next tank in line. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just where it's positioned in front of that tank because all I did was move it. Like I said, all the jacks are plugged in as much as I can. I can only plug them in so plugged. They're as plugged as they're going to plug. Um, I'm not doing anything different with my collar. I'm not rubbing my neck. I'm not. If they're static, they're static. I just can't. Nothing I can do about it. All right. Well, I'm glad I fixed it for you. I don't really know what my pH is, Steve. I'm guessing it's around neutralish. That's what it should be. When I use the pH paper, it usually comes out neutral. And the top 3 plants that I grow is probably Java moss, Java fern, and crypt. And it is the crypt Wendetti, or however you pronounce that. Wendetti. You know what the stuff is. I don't have any discus in the tank we were just looking at. I did, but it died a while ago. So I don't think that would be the case. Maybe the diamond tetras are so reflective that their surface is actually reflecting the radio waves off and causing feedback and interference. No, it's not litmus paper. Litmus paper will only tell you whether something is basic or acidic. It doesn't actually give you the pH. I use pH paper, which actually does give you pH, but it only gives you pH to the number. It won't give you like 7.4. It's either going to show you 7 or it's going to show you 8 or it's going to show you 6. It's not going to show somewhere in between. I'll go get a strip and we'll take the test on this tank, and I'm going to probably guess that it is going to come out at neutral because it just about always does. All right, let's see where I left my pH paper. It's not in my weed room. Or is it? No, it isn't. So if it's not in here, maybe it's over here. Well, you can see how often I test my pH. Where in the hell is my pH paper? Is it in there? I suppose it could be in there. I think I have a couple rolls of it. I usually buy it by the 2-pack because it's cheaper. Let me see. pH paper, pH paper. No pH paper. There's my pH paper. It is hiding over here, you little fucker. So there's my pH paper. We will take a little strip, give it a little dip, and then in about 30 seconds, we'll be able to match it up to one of the colors. And it usually comes out right there on, well, can you see it? It usually comes out right there on that one, which is already starting to look like it's going to. It's definitely not that one. And it's definitely not that one. It's right smack on that one, which is 7, of course. And the paper is accurate. At least it's accurate enough that it does change. It's not like, gosh, every time I take my pH, it's always 7. And I've never bothered to check anything else against it to see if it does anything other than turn that color green. It does turn other than that color green. If you dip it in, I've dipped it in stuff that was really acidic and it turns blood crimsony red. I've dipped it in stuff that was really basic and it turns a bright, vibrant purple. I've dipped it in stuff that I know was a little bit basic or a little bit acid, and I do get, it does come out at 8 or it does come out at 6. So I know that it's at least reasonably accurate. It will change. It doesn't just always come out at 7, no matter what I do. So most of my tanks, I'm going to say, sit around 7 because the pH paper generally gives me 7 on my tanks. Uranium glow. They should make the tanks out of that uranium glass, and then the discus would really pop. Oh, died from lack of beef heart. Yes and no, Steve. My angelfish do lay eggs all the time. My discus will lay eggs. I've had other fish spawn, but I've never had the offspring raise. Now, my other fish, like my schooling fish, the not in this tank, but in the tank we were just looking at, the diamond tetras have bred. I believe the Buenos Aires tetras in there have bred. I've never gotten babies from my black skirt tetras. Oddly, over all the years I've been keeping black skirt tetras, I've never gotten a breed out of them. And then, of course, my live bears breed like live bears. I always get babies from them. My spotted tilapia, she lays eggs all the time, but she's in there by herself, so her eggs are always sterile, and then they get eaten within a day or so. But my angelfish, this angelfish has never laid eggs, but that angelfish lays them all the time. And we're about 3/4 of the way full. Your favorite emote became synonymous with. I'm not sure what you're saying there. I don't know if you used it right or not because I don't understand your sentence. A synonym is a word that can be used just in replace of another one. It's basically a different word that means the same thing. Like ugly and unattractive would be synonyms. Speaking of ugly and unattractive, we really need to get in this tank once again and do some more work. We are rapidly approaching May 5th, which will be 1 year since I have done a water change on these. I mean, a filter change. Do you see that date written right there? 5/5/24. That was when I did a last filter change on this aquarium. I've done water changes. But the last time I changed the filter out, see, this is the discus that looks pretty rough. Look how dark he is. Look how small he is. I think he gets bullied around a lot. I'm not sure if I should remove him. I almost want to leave him in there because I feel like if I take him out, the other fish will just find another one to start doing that too. And it'll just be a constant removing, the next fish down the line until I've got like a single pair in here. But it does seem to hang out at this end with those fish all the time, even though it definitely looks like it gets bullied. And then everybody else is hanging out down at this end, hiding in the bushes and whatnot. There's a few in the back. They'll start swimming around a little bit once the water change is over and we get up to putting the fresh water back in the tank. This one's just a boss. He doesn't fucking care. All the other ones go and hide, and this one's like, yeah, come over here. Shine that light in my eyes. I'll show you what a damn discus fish looks like. Shine that light in my eyes. I think this is the mated pair. I think that's dad, and I think that's mom. Well, they would be dad and mom if they ever had a successful breed, but I think that's the female. The hell was that? Something scared the shit out of everybody, except for this poor little guy. So I'm still on the fence about whether or not to take him out or leave him in there. You can see how bad he looks. Look how dark he is. Makes me sad looking at him. So we're going to stop, go back to looking at this tank. We're just waiting for that one to finish topping off. And once I get the hose out of there, I'll be able to sit down and relax a little while. All right, let's move on and look at 29 for a little bit. Got some nice new growth coming in here on this Anubias. You see that little tiny spike right there? That's a new leaf getting ready to unfurl. All right, let's throw some vibrobites in here. You can almost tell I need to get in there and wipe the glass down on this tank. This is one of those tanks that gets about 2 water changes a year, maybe, and I hardly ever get in there and wipe the glass down. But this is also one of the few tanks that just has like stock standard aquarium lighting. Most of my tanks have crazy mad a lot of lighting, and that's why they grow the way they grow, and the algae grows the way it grows, etc. I see Kendra popping in there. Let's see. Wouldn't it be more like his avatar? Is that the word we're looking for here? His likeness or his his avatar. Well, I guess it would only be his avatar if it was animated. If it's not animated, then I think it might be just a symbol. I don't know. The middle brace of your 55 just gave out. I don't think it's an emergency, but I would definitely start looking for another tank. I don't know how necessary that middle brace is, but what do you mean it just gave out? Were you leaning on it or something? Like what happened? Like I'm trying to imagine the scenario where like suddenly one of my braces on my aquarium just caves in or something. I mean, I literally have woodwork lying across braces in my 125. So I'm dying to know how your brace gave out. What fish would I like to get next? Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I thought the kitty poking out of the box, that's who I think of as Zini. The cat has little gimlet eyes. did you did you have to look up gimlet eyes? Eyes like gimlets? No. So he loosened it for you, is what you're saying, Kendra? Interesting. Yeah, you could do what Mike was saying. Just take a little thin piece of metal and go over, bend it 90 degrees over the sides and just sort of hook it in, glue it down into place so it doesn't move. And I think you'd be all right. But keeping an eye out for a used 55, that might not be a terrible idea. I think fish tanks come available fairly often. A lot of people get involved in the hobby and then burn out after a while or just lose interest for whatever reason. And my brother used to do clean outs on apartments when people would get evicted or they would move or something. And well, not when they would get evicted, but when they would move, a lot of people would just leave and they would leave shit they didn't want behind. And then that way it just wasn't their problem anymore. They would just move out and they knew they were losing their security deposit or whatever, but they didn't have to take that giant waterbed with them, or that huge fucking couch that's not going to fit in their next apartment. And so the people would leave all kinds of shit behind. And my brother would go do these clean outs, and anything good he found, he would he would sell at yard sales and stuff like that. He was always trying to find some way of making a buck. Um, And one of the things he told me when I first started getting into fish keeping was like, he's like, just be careful you don't burn yourself out on it. He said, it's just I get so many aquariums. He goes in and finds aquariums fully filled with fish and running. People just don't know what to do when they move out. They just leave the fish tank there running, plugged in, lights on. And so he said he got so many fish tank. And after a while, he realized like, it didn't make any sense for him because he couldn't get rid of them. There's just so many available out there that like you can't sell them and make money. People have a hard time giving them away. So look around and you probably can find something you can get fairly cheap, if not for free, if you're willing to go pick it up or something. A lot of people do that. As long as you come get it, you can have it. Well, there you go, Kendra. If you're part of a group or something, just put out the word that you're looking for a 55 and just wait and see what happens. It probably won't take a week and you'll hear from somebody. All right, we're still filling, so I'm going to do another dab. And this is Poochie Love, by the way. I keep saying it's that stuff I made a huge batch of, but I keep forgetting to tell you what it was called. It is the Poochie Love. I really do like the Poochie Love. I got it from Steve. Unfortunately, if you'll remember from Friday night, I was telling you about how I found all those or from Wednesday night, and I guess only my members heard me. But I found mites on my plants in my vegging area, and I explained how one of the plants had so many mites on it that even though I visually couldn't see their spider webs, when I misted the plant down, the mist will settle on the webbing. And suddenly I realized like the whole plant, all of where like every leaf where the leaf met the base of the stem, there was a little bit of a web right there. Just the whole thing had like every area like that where the leaf split and spread apart. Right at the base of that was covered in webbing. I was just like, holy shit. So that plant that had that many mites on it, that was my final Poochie Love. I had one last cutting that I didn't think was going to survive, but I hung on to it anyway. And finally, after weeks and weeks of it just sitting there doing nothing, it started greening up a little bit. And I was like, I think it's going to live. And it did. It rooted, it started growing. I transplanted it into a larger pot. And so that is my last Poochie Love. If that plant dies, I don't have any more Poochie Love. If I can get it to get over the mites and survive my brutal spraying and treatment of the mites, and it gets a little bit bigger, I'll be able to start making some cuttings off of it, and I'll have some more Poochie Love in the future. But it's still not guaranteed that I will keep my Poochie Love. Hey, Ian, how are you? This Anubias is chump change compared to my big Anubias, but that is a good looking Anubias. Thank you. I do agree. And you can see, I think actually that new growth I was talking about, that little bright colored point, I don't think that's a new leaf about to unfurl. I think that's another flower bract or whatever you want to call those things. I call them flowers. I know technically they're not, and I usually correct myself before somebody gets a chance to. But I am going to need to get in here pretty soon and chop it off, way down here. So if somebody's going to be interested in getting themselves a nice piece of Anubias out of this tank, let me know, and we can make arrangements, because I do need to get in there and cut that down. So pretty much anytime if someone's ready and somebody wants, just email me, contact me, and we'll be getting that chopped down out of there. I've also got some pretty good Anubias growth going on in my regrowth, I should say, going on over here. All this, I cut this back. It was way like all the way up to the surface. I cut the whole top of it off, and it's starting to grow back quite nicely. You can see how bright green all that growth on there is. So we're just waiting for that to fill up. Once that's filled, and I can stop paying attention to the hose and relax a little bit. But in the meantime, we're going to keep standing here watching it, or at least I am. You're going to watch this tank. I did get in there this evening. You're welcome. And scrape all that crap off the glass before we went live, so you can actually see in there tonight. Cecil. I got to keep remembering there's not as many fish in here now. I don't have to dump quite so much food in there. How did I just open my calendar up? What the hell did I do? I don't want to open my calendar. I know what day it is. It's Friday. I don't want to open Google. I want to open fucking YouTube. There we go. My YouTube's back. All right, you guys keep watching that. I'm going to keep watching the discus tank because it is getting close. And then after that, I'll be able to sit down. Well, we got a couple more tanks to feed, but I can sit down and relax while we get them fed. That's not a problem. I just want to make sure I don't get distracted while we're topping this discus tank off. It's been a long time since I have overflowed a tank, but I do not think I am above it or beyond it or incapable of overflowing a tank. I'm very, very much capable of overflowing a tank if I lose track of concentration or I stop focusing. Oh, I forgot. I ate one marijuana cookie tonight, and I took one of my muscle relaxers because my back has really been hurting me again today. And I took two of each yesterday. I took two marijuana cookies and two muscle relaxers, and I have a higher dosage. They had to bump my dosage up, so I'm taking 10 mil pills instead of 5. So yesterday when I took 2, I normally take anywhere between 1 and 3 pills. So 15 milligrams is normally my upper dosage when I'm in a lot of pain. But last night I took 20 milligrams because I only have 10 milligram pills now. It's either 10 or 20. So I took 20 and then I ate 2 of those cookies, and holy shit. I was in bed by 10:15, I think, last night. Well, I was in my nest by like 10:15, but I think I was in bed by 11:30 or midnight. Normally I don't get in my nest until 1 o'clock in the morning, and if I'm lucky, I'm in bed by 4. But I crashed out so hard last night. Woke up feeling like I got hit by a goddamn truck today. But I did have to go out and work in the afternoon a little bit. And I think walking around with that heavy sprayer pack on my back is what got it flared up again and got it. I hadn't quite worked it out, and then went and did that, and it got it all, hot and bothered again. And so, yeah, I'm still in a little bit of pain, but it's tolerable. But I did take the one muscle relaxer, and I took one marijuana cookie tonight. So we'll see how that affects me. The muscle relaxer is definitely affecting me already. That's why I thought about it. And I realized when I sat down, I'm like, oh, yeah, that feels good. The cookie probably won't kick in for another half an hour or so. I think I ate that around, what time did I eat that? No, I guess I ate that around 7 or so. So maybe that's already kicked in. I don't know. Those cookies are weird. I don't think they're that potent, but Steve ate 2 of them when we went out for a hike last week, and he was fucking tore up. He was so high. It was funny as shit. But as I just said, I ate 2 last night, and I was tore up. But I also ate 20 milligrams of the Flexeril on top of the 2 cookies. But I was fucking tore up. I was high as shit. So one cookie doesn't seem to do a whole lot to me, but 2 of them is like a punch in the fucking brain. Apparently, I don't understand how that works. Let me see. I've got a link for Kendra. A friend of mine just sent me an email. I want to hide his name. Actually, let me do this because I don't want his name on here. I'm not sure how to take a screen cap with this. There, I did take a screen cap. All right, let me do that. Let me do this. Are you ready to take a screen cap yourself, Kendra, or are you perhaps ready to just write something down? Let me find my gallery. I know I'm doing this the hard way, but I want to respect this guy's privacy. I want to make sure his name doesn't show up on the screen even by accident. So do you see that link? aquariumframeswholesale.com. A friend of mine just told me to give that link to Kendra. So maybe that's some good prices on some aquarium stuff there. Oh, shit. I almost did forget to. Yep. Hang on. I almost overflowed in the tank while I was busy doing that. But I didn't. Holy shit. I came so close, though, but I did not. God damn, that was a close one. Yeah, Neil, I tried to get most of the minnows into the 125, my other 125, Daryl. But unfortunately, a lot of those minnows have now either been eaten or have jumped out. And so I don't have a lot of minnows in that tank either. That was a close one. I was really close to overflowing that. I had about a 1/4 inch left to go on this end, and it would have started overflowing. All right, now that I've safely got the water turned off, I'm going to go turn it back on because we're going to fill the pond up. I noticed that the pond is running a little low as well, so we're going to put some water in there. This tank actually wouldn't hurt with the top off. This plug is the power head and the 125. You know, I have the power head right here. You can actually see the magnet right here. This power head is what was I had turned off because the water level was so low. That power head just sits there and spins, and after a while it goes dry, and then it starts screaming at me. And so I just unplug it when I do the water change. All right, let me get him fed, and I'll go get the water turned back on. We'll put some water topping off in the pond. I think my betta fish upstairs in my office tank has a bad swim bladder. I've noticed the last several days or so, maybe the last week, that every time I see him, he seems really lethargic. And he often seems like he's just lying on the bottom or he's just lying on a leaf or something. He doesn't really seem like he's swimming around the tank anymore. And last night I noticed when I was in there, he was like standing on his tail and it looked like he was trying to swim, but he like couldn't go up. And so when I fed them, that tank gets fed when I turn the lights on in the morning. When I fed them, he was the same way. He was down on the bottom of the tank, and it was like he was trying to swim up towards where he knew I was feeding the tank, and he was like trying to swim to the surface, but he couldn't seem like he could up off the bottom. And of course, I made sure some of the food sank down to him, and I saw that he ate some of it. But he definitely seemed like he wasn't able to just like swim up into the water column. Like his swim bladder was just completely deflated, and he was just sinking to the bottom. So I don't know why. Again, don't know how old he is. I've had him for about 2 years now, and I don't know if that's a long lifespan for a betta fish, but I know that it's not unusual for the betta fish to not live very long. I've heard people say that you never really can tell how old they are when you get them. It's not like you buy them as babies in the store. You buy them fully grown already, so you don't know if they've already been used for breeding purposes or whatever. So you just never know the age of your betta fish when you get it. Some live 2 years, some live 4. So I don't know. Can you see the little shrimps crawling around down there on the bottom? The shrimps definitely took off in this tank and are doing well. 3 to 5 years on a betta fish. Well, I'm standing right here in front of the computer machine, so let's Google that and see what happens. Two to 5 years. Siamese fighting fish. Who calls them Siamese fighting fish? All right, let's look at something that's not from AI, and let's look at Aquion's website. That's accurate enough, I'm sure. Let's see. Betta fish typically have short lifespans of about 2 to 4 years on average with care. Your betta fish might live as long as 5 years. So don't be hard on yourself if your betta fish doesn't live longer than that. 5 years is considered old age for a betta and an achievement you should take pride in. Well, I ain't getting no 5 years out of mine. I've had him for about 2. All right, we still got about a half an inch of water to go. The pond takes a little longer to fill up, a little more surface area, a little more square footage. So mine's not dead. It just doesn't, it's never a good sign when you see a fish with a bad swim bladder. I've had fish live for years with bad swim bladders. Usually they tend to live longer when their swim bladder deflates and they can't get to the surface very easily. They tend to live a lot longer than when they are on the other end of the spectrum and their swim bladder is overinflated and they float around in the tank and they can't get down in the water column. I'm not 100% sure why they do worse under those scenarios. Obviously, one of the things that can happen is if the fish is so buoyant that part of it is exposed above the surface of the water and it can dry out. That could cause plenty of issues if the fish's skin is drying out in certain areas. But I've never really noticed that actually be an issue. And of course, they can still splash around and attempt to get down into the water column, which is going to keep their whole body wet at any given time. It's just anytime I've ever seen one that's had maybe it's what's going on inside their body. Maybe as the swim bladder is really bloated and inflated, it's pushing on their other organs, and maybe it's preventing their digestive tract from moving through. I mean, even our own bladders, when our own bladders get full, it affects how things move through our, digestive tract. You ever notice how you have to pee or you fart a lot in the morning when you pee? You reduce the size of your bladder, and all that pressure that was blocking, all that stuff is able to move now and empties out. And so possibly if the fish has a huge inflated swim bladder that's causing it to float on the surface, it's probably just doing shit to its insides, which make it not live very long. But I have had fish live for quite a few years with the swim bladder being deflated. And either they have to struggle to stay on the surface, or they just kind of lounge around on the bottom. And just as long as they're getting plenty of food, they seem to be okay. It's neat to see the way all the goldfish are sort of gathering around where the fresh water intake is coming in. It's really cold water. I'm not running any hot water. I'm just running the cold. They were all lined up right in front of it a minute ago. And of course, I get the camera and they come back and they're not anymore. But that's just ground temperature water. So it's like 55-degree water going into the tank. It may as well be just natural spring water. It's coming straight out of the ground and going right in there. All right, let's move on to the discus tank here. I'll get that fed. By now, the tank, the pond is getting topped off. So I'll get that hose put away, and I'll be ready to sit down and have a relax here in a minute. All right, looking good. I think we're going to throw some granules in there tonight. All right, granules away. Oh, that's interesting, Art. I didn't know you that you could get them places where they weren't full grown yet. I've never seen a betta fish. Of course, I've never seen one being sold outside. Well, I guess House of Tropicals has them, but I've never really paid much attention. I think they just come in the cups. Hello, Princess. I think they just come in the cups the way they do at the PetSmart or the Petco. I wonder how difficult they'd be to breed, and would it be worth it? The water's getting deep enough that it's starting to affect the way the green kayak over there is moving. It was actually flowing around. I wonder if a fish underneath of it is moving it, because there is a fish right underneath of it. In a little while, we're going to start hearing the smacking, slurping noises as the fish try to get to the stuff above the surface. You can see they're already getting started. They're eating stuff that is now exposed to them because the water level's higher. See, look how they come up out of the water like that. I'll try to get some video of the ponds once I sit down, because at some point, and I'll get my app out so we can zoom in on them, but at some point they're going to start doing that thing where they come up out of the water and try to get the algae and stuff off the rocks. And if they do, I want to be able to get it on the video. So let me go grab my phone, get that app set up, and I think we're going to turn the water off and call that full. Actually, we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to take the hose out of there. And we're going to top off my betta tank here because that needs it too. Now, remember, this is 55-degree water, but we're only putting an inch, into the top of the tank. So even though it's really cold water going in there, it's not really going to overall affect the temperature of the tank very much. So we don't have to worry too much about that. Hey, fishing net. Trying to unwind. Well, I'm about to sit down and unwind myself. We're going to do some dabs, and I might bring my bong in and smoke a little bit of the actual weed itself, because I do have some of the Poochie Love, and it's finally cured. I opened it yesterday, and like it, it had just woken up. The fragrance was there. Um, Not as smooth as it could be. Obviously, once it's cured, it will get better for the next couple of months if I leave it in there up to a certain point. It doesn't just keep getting better forever. But it will, the first 3 weeks is enough to call it cured. But if I really want the smoothness to really happen, I could leave it in there for another week or two. But I'm going to start working on it a little bit tonight, maybe. We'll see. All right, let me get this put away. Get that switch flipped so that the water comes out the right place. What am I looking for? Looking for my bong. It's all dirty and has dirty water in it, but I don't care. And now we can grab my Poochie Love marijuana. And we'll get a lighter. We'll get my phone. And I think I'm ready. All right, I got all kind of stuff here. I need to sit down. There's my Poochie Love weed. I know it doesn't look like much, but there's a reason it doesn't look like much. All right, hang on, everybody. I'm getting close. Oh, you see how red my head is? I told you, I'm burnt the shit out of my head. I don't know if it's coming out, how well that comes out or not. Does that look pink to you? I took a picture of it earlier and sent it to somebody, and it definitely didn't look as pink in the picture as it does to me when I look at it in the mirror. When I look at it on my phone, it definitely looks like my head is sunburned, because it is. I feel it. Ooh. All right, let me see where I am. Back here somewhere. Let's see. Damn, Mark, that's awesome. Well, I shave my head, but I'm definitely, nature's doing a lot for me already. I don't have to shave nearly as much as I used to. Um, but again, if you missed it, what I was saying earlier is I went out in the sun for a while in my kayak yesterday, and I put sunblock on, most of my body, but I always wear a hat, and I just, holy crap, that smells so good. I just took the lid off. I never put sunblock on my head because I just always wear a hat. I literally sunblock my ears. I put it on, spray it on my fingers and go around my ears and everything. I got my cheekbones and tip my nose, and I just didn't put any on my head. And then, so of course I went out, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to get a little sun on my head, maybe take some of that pale shine off of it. And I had my hat off for like an hour. I just wasn't thinking about it. It was just a nice day. Wasn't particularly hot. I didn't feel like I was getting burned or anything. I just wasn't thinking about it. And then by the time I got home, I had a headache and whatnot. And when I got in the shower and the hot water hit, I was like, oh my God. I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay, I guess I did get a little sun today, didn't I? Oh, man, it's amazing the difference one day makes. Yesterday was the day this really woke up, and now it already smells so much better than it did then. Anyway, the reason this is so much less than it was last time you saw it a day or two ago is I took a half ounce out of it and I set it aside in a different jar. So I have a specific known amount in a half ounce in a jar. And then I don't even know what this is, but this is going to be for my personal. I'll make some of that into goo probably, and the rest of it will just be to smoke. but it's really good looking bud. And it smells incredible. It's got that nice garlicky smell that the Poochie Love has. I'm telling you, I'll put my shit up against the stuff you buy at the store any day of the week. And my stuff, unlike the stuff you buy at the store, is like, it's got softness to it and it's smooth to smoke. And I don't know. I don't like the store-bought weed. It's all bone dry and it's harsh and burns your throat when you smoke it. My shit don't do none of that. Now, watch how much I cough and shit when I smoke this. But it's mainly because I'm not used to smoking. I'm used to vaping. But I do still like to smoke sometimes to have fun with it. After all, this is fish and hits. So we'll do some hits. Almost lost you there. That was almost a ninja disappear. One of these days, I'm going to be able to blow enough smoke out there that when the smoke clears, I'm just going to be gone. You're not going to know where I went. You'll probably realize I'm just hiding right on the floor in front of the camera, but it'll look neat. The magic of Hollywood. Oh, man, a tattoo on my head. That would fucking hurt. All right. I'm caught up once again. I don't know if I have anything fish related on my mind tonight. Let's look over here. Let's turn this light on. I don't know how much light that's going to give it, but let me get my app turned on and I can actually zoom you guys in a little bit. Get you a little closer by lowering the camera. Of course, now they're not doing it anymore. Here, let me get my app turned on. Oh, I got to swipe. Hang on. All right, one of these is my Mevo app. There's my Mevo app. Let's open the Mevo app. And we're going to connect to the Mevo. And once we are connected, we can do that. And now you can see the koi sticking their little faces up out of the water. So yeah, you're getting a little look at them. You see how they're jumping up out of the water like that? Sometimes they come out of the water so far you think that, like, again, it reminds me of when you see like the orcas chasing a seal or something, and they like wash them up onto the shore, and then the orca will like go up on the shore and like have to like kind of hump its way back into the water. The goldfish will jump up onto those rocks, like half their body is up on the rock to get to algae. Sometimes it's wild watching them do it. Dave, sandbagging it again. All right. Any questions? Anything on anyone else's mind? I'm not going to run real late tonight if we don't have a whole lot going on, and it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot going on. Everybody's kind of waiting on me. Again, I just don't have a whole lot on my mind to chat about. I haven't really been thinking about a whole lot. I was asked last week about plants growing more densely or doing better if they grew near an air stone. And I said I would look into that, but I'm just now thinking about it again. So obviously I haven't looked into that yet. But I'm honestly not really that anxious to start digging into that because I don't particularly think I'm going to see anything interesting. Don't know what we got going on here, but everybody seems to have moved to this end and is now munching on the algae growing on the side. They always do this when the after a water change, they'll go to where they again, the water is an inch deeper now. They can get to areas where cyanobacteria and algae and stuff is growing on the sides of it, and they will just eat the shit out of it. This happens every time I do a water change. They go around the whole tank or the whole pond, and they'll just clean off all the edges. They'll get all those rocks, that piece of wood in the middle that has some Java moss growing on the top of it. Like now that the more of the moss is in the water, they'll eat more of the moss. And they always seem to do it in a group. I don't like. There's none of them left over where the other ones were feeding before, where we were just looking at them. They've all come over here. What's your well, I guess your channel is Daniel Ingalls. So yeah, if anybody is listening and not reading along, Daniel just put up some YouTube shorts for his tank. He just put some fish in. Eco Tank 1994 is the handle. So check out Eco Tank 1994. Eco Tank being all one word. Actually, it looks like it's all one word. Eco Tank 1994. I would think fish are too short to play basketball. Oh, you're quite welcome, Daniel. Glad to help. They're afraid of nets. Oh, that would make sense too. I just thought they'd be too short to play basketball. All right. Oh, what's that look like under Zoom? Can you see it? It's trying to focus, but it's getting really close. I wonder if the light not being right on it would make it easier. No, not really. Anyway, it's really good weed. I can smell it just from handling it by the stem. Damn, this is good stuff. And this is just a seed I got from Steve. He had a buddy that got a bag from the store or got a container from the store of Poochie Love, and he found a seed in it. And he asked Steve, "You need anything you can do with this?" And Steve's like, "Yeah, I've got something I can do with that. I'm gonna give it to Dan." And he did, and it turned out to be a female. And this is it. It is good shit. So he's more than gotten his payback for hooking me up with that one. He's gotten some sweet bags of weed out of that. A little smoky ambiance for the sexy fish. Looks like they've moved down to that end. Ark always does the dad jokes. Where do fish sleep? On the ocean bed? Riverbeds? In a waterbed. I think a riverbed is a better answer than a waterbed, but that works. They're good at it. It's true. If they were bad at it, you wouldn't see them. Has anybody ever seen the it's a Onion piece about the Ninja Parade that gets held every year? It's fucking hilarious. It's this whole thing about the Ninja Parade, just went through town again this year. And once again, nobody saw a thing, but they know the parade happened because all the children's pockets were full of candy. But it's a successful Ninja Parade when you know you didn't see anybody. Yeah, that one was fucking good. The Onion is awesome. They make up headlines that are so ridiculous, but if you didn't know it was a joke, you'd almost believe it. Like, they're really good at finding that edge. It's harder to make up wacky, crazy shit that sounds almost believable, but it's harder than you think. But man, they come up with some good stuff on the Onion. All right. How do Eskimos fix their houses with igloo? That's on Arknight level there. I guess all dad jokes are on Arknight level, though, when you get right down to it, because dad jokes are dad jokes. Every now and again, you get a good zinger of a dad joke. I'm not a dad, and so that part of my brain hasn't broken. I still can think like a normal person, like not a dad. But I will say I do appreciate a good dad joke once in a while. If you nail it, if you get a good one, if you get it right. And I got a buddy that is a dad now, and he sends me dad jokes all the fucking time. Like dad joke memes, I get them constantly. And again, some of them are really funny, and I got to hand it to you. That was a good one. But most of them are just like eye rolling, like, yeah, I guess maybe that's funny if you're a dad or something, but I don't think it's that funny. Oh, I forgot, Zini. I'm sorry. What time is it when a crocodile breaks your fence? Time to get a new fence? Time to move? Time to get a new fence, exactly. The little discus here, my little sad one. See, these two, I'm sure, are the pair, and they always bully on this one. He's like their little whipping boy. Oh, Shamu's around. I don't know where he's been on my live streams lately. I think he's got stuff going on of his own. But that's his business, and I will leave it to him if he wants to discuss it with anybody. And nothing bad or weird or anything. He's just been busy. I think he's thinking maybe about moving out or changing jobs or something. I don't know. He's got stuff going on or whatever, and so presumably he's just busy. I don't think it's anything to worry about. He'll be back around. He just hasn't been for a while. I still chat with him. I still get texts from him on a regular basis. I still send him memes and whatnot. So we're in touch. He just hasn't been around on the live stream. So again, I wouldn't worry about it. Wanted to scale up its living situation. 1917. Right. So I already explained the difference between Z and Z. Z being wrong. What was the other thing that I said today? Oh, I was talking about the difference between envy, being envious, and being jealous, and how that so often gets used improperly. So I'll talk about that because why not? Most of you may or may not know this. I don't know, but some of you probably don't use jealous correctly. In fact, a lot of people don't use jealous correctly. It's just one of those things that bug me. I try not to be too pedantic, and if anybody does say it, I don't correct them necessarily, but in my mind, I'm definitely correcting them. People use jealous when what they really mean is they're envious. And they say, oh, I'm so jealous of, so and so, look at that awesome new car they got or whatever. I'm so jealous. That's not jealousy. That's envy. Envy is when you desire something someone else has. That's envy. Jealousy means that you have something that you're afraid other people are going to take away from you. So you guard something jealousy. Think of the jealous husband. The jealous husband has a hot wife, and he's afraid every dude out there is going to try to take her away from him. So he guards her jealously. So jealousy is when you've already got the thing and you don't want somebody to take it from you. Envy is what people typically mean when they say they're jelly. They don't mean jelly, they mean envy. And that's your word lesson for tonight. Now, zealous, that's a whole different ballgame when we talk about zealous. I get it. A double play on words there, Christopher. That's not a bad one. See, the whole point of a dad joke and the reason they're called dad jokes is they're meant to be told to small children because they're usually plays on words. They're clever little things that get children to realize like there's the ways you can play with the language and words mean different things. And it's a good developmental tool for children's brains to start putting, the world into context. And that's why they're called dad jokes. So they don't necessarily have to be good and funny for us other adults. And even for children that roll their eyes when they hear the dumb, corny jokes or whatever, it's still making their brains learn things. And so dad jokes are always good to tell your kids. And I don't think you can help it. I just think it's sort of hardwired into how we teach language to our children. Is these dad jokes are just sort of inherent in that sort of developmental thing. I'm sure you go anywhere in the world and there's dads. You go down to some South American tribe that's never seen a white man before, and I bet they got dads down there telling their young children jokes about whatever's relevant to their lives or whatever. It's just a natural thing we do. But some dad jokes can be very clever and very good. I like the below sea level. That one's pretty good. More my tennis shoes. That's a good one too. Zealous means really, really super enthusiastic. If you're zealous about something, think of like a religious zealot. A religious zealot is somebody that goes to church 6 days a week. So being zealous just means like really, really enthusiastic about something. It's Mimichu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but hello. I do not make a great dad because kids suck. I'm the kind of father, like my children are Zini, Kendra, and Shamu, and sometimes Mel. And not really Mel, though. That's kind of a joke. But the other ones definitely are. Except for Kendra, too. She just thinks I look like her dad, so she calls me that. But with Zini and Shamu, I definitely treat them like my children. I try to educate them. But they're the right age. I went from having no kids to having 2 kids, and one is 26 and the other one's 21. And so that's the way to do it. You skip all the bullshit years of them being born and growing into adults. Once they're adults, something cool with having the kids. I wouldn't mind having adult children. I just don't want to go through all that bullshit of fucking raising them. That's the shitty part. Once you actually get to where they're in their 20s and whatnot, that's not so bad. And if you get to pick them and their personality and everything, and you can decide I don't like that one or whatever, and this one's cool, That's a bonus too, because most people can't do that with their kids, and they get stuck with whatever genetics and whatnot happened, and then that's the kid you got. I know my parents probably wish they could have fucking pushed the reset button on me if they could have. We didn't mean that one. Can we get a different one? Excuse me. Yeah, I could see that being a common, like, hardwired into our brain kind of game to play. Been married for 9 years. I've been married for 900. You don't like that one? Don't like what one? Oh, you don't like that one? Adopt that one. Can we get a replacement? Hey, Frank. Now, I have been married to my current wife. I call her my current wife because you never know what the future holds. No, I actually think of her as my correct wife. The first one was the wrong one, and the one that's probably sleeping upstairs right now is the correct one. And we've been married, I don't know, a bunch of years, over 20. It'll be, we were talking about this the other night too, and I don't remember, 23 or 24. I think we got married in 2002, but it might have been 2001. I'm pretty sure it was 2002. Excuse me, in July, early July. So let's go with, I'm going to say July 11th, 2002, I think is when we got married. So 23 years now. $23 going on 900. God. If it's going on 900 for me, it must be going on 9,000 for her. All right. I do grow. And hello, MJP Workshop and Aquariums. I'm not going to call you that whole thing every time. I'll just probably call you MJ. Yes, I do grow, but I do not really use my fish water for my plants. I have, but it's, I don't know. I have no need to, and so I just don't. When I do water changes, I'm doing it through a hose. It goes into the other room. I'd have to go out of my way to take the water to put it, I already have plant food and everything that I already have right there that I make up. And so that's my plants and my garden and everything. And then my fish keeping stuff is my fish keeping stuff. Now, occasionally when I'm watering my garden plants, I'm watering my weed plants, I will come in here with the watering can because I do have some plants along here that are not in the pond. And I need, they're, basically potted plants and I need to water them occasionally. Sometimes I will take the planters and simply dip them in the pond and just get some pond water. But a lot of times, especially if it's a watering where I'm using food, I don't feed every single time I water. But if it is a time that I'm watering and it's been a while and I'm using food, I'll come in here and I'll use the plant food in some of these tanks to make sure that instead of getting some nutrients in the fish water, they're getting real plant food that's got the full spectrum of all the stuff that's meant to be in there. I just like the control of having the actual fertilizer rather than just, again, guessing. I know it's nutrient rich, but how much of what nutrients and all that kind of stuff, I know there's a lot of nitrogen. There's probably a lot of phosphorus. I don't know. I don't know. I don't worry that much about it. Why did I start growing marijuana next to the fish tanks? Well, technically, I started growing fish tanks next to my marijuana, but it's not really next to it. My weeds in other rooms, and it's intense and everything. It's not really subject to the humid conditions that are in here too much. In fact, the inside of my tents, in a lot of cases, the humidity is down in the low 40s or sometimes even upper 30s, and it's too dry. My leaves actually don't do well. I need to put extra water in the bottom in the trays so that the additional water moistens the air inside my tents, because the light and the fans and everything, it's just really hot in there. So for as moist as it is down here in the basement, overall, I don't have a lot of moisture in my tents, oddly, at least relative. Oh, was that supposed to be a joke? I'm shaking my head at that highbrow too. You see me shaking my head right now? You know what I'm shaking my head at that? I'm shaking my head at that highbrow right there. Yeah, I didn't know that was a joke, Ark. That's how bad that joke was. I did not even know it was a joke. I thought you were legitimately asking like why I started growing my plants in the fish room and everything. Man, that one was terrible. Now I'm going to have to agree with other people. You need to just stop. You need to seek some therapy after that one. All right, let's do another dab. I need something after that. My God, that was like a record breaking. To say that one was below sea level. I could probably work in a Zed joke in there somewhere. Those minnows really are cool looking, the ones that are getting bigger. I think the ones that are in that tank, I'm going to leave in that tank, even though they're a little boisterous and aggressive for being in that small tank. If I do move them, I'm going to put them in one of my tanks that has a hood on it. I just think we're going to eventually lose all of the minnows from jumping out of my open top tank. So as cool as they looked in there, and I'd really love to see how big they could really grow, because sometimes shiners can get 8 or 10 inches. Um, I don't think they'll survive if we put them in that open top. But they're getting really cool looking. The one with the white tips on its fin is not singular. A lot of them are actually starting to develop the white tips on their fins. He was just the biggest one of the bunch, and so he started developing those white tips earlier than the other ones. But a lot of them in there really have those tips now. They're really cool looking. Excuse me. You have a tap that comes from your overflow before you sump on your 120. Oh, you mean so you can just like turn the tap and get water in your watering can? Is that what you're saying? You water your plants with it? I've got you. I will show you I don't show on my members area. I walk around and show you what I got going on my public videos. I don't really, but I do have one that is growing right now. I'm in the process of growing it out so that I can put it into flowering. It's not quite as big as I want it to be, and I'm still spraying the tent and the plant to make sure there's no mites on it before I start the flowering process. But this one's getting there. I'm going to grow it until it's at the top of the stake. And once it's at the top of the stake, we'll put it into the flowering and we'll get a few more inches of growth out of it before it stops. But that's what it looks like from the top. And it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but it's one of those plants that grows like foursquare. If I turn it too much, I'll be dumping soil on the ground, and I don't want to do that. But if you look straight down on it, it looks like a square. It's almost completely square. Here, it'll probably be easier to do it this way. Calm down, fish. The goldfish are freaking out. So if you look straight down on it, you can kind of see how it's box-like. Each side is squared off. It's got branches that grow this way, and it's got branches that grow that way. And so some plants are the phenotype where the You'll have like a branch grow here, and then you'll have another branch a third of the way around going that way, and then you have a branch a third of the way around coming this way, and each one is a little higher up the stem, and so you get this spiral staircase effect on the branches. And then you have the phenotype like this, where you got two down here, almost like the way a pine tree grows. You see, we got two going that way, and then you go up to the next level, and you got two going that way, perpendicular, and then you got two going perpendicular, and then you got two going perpendicular. And so you get these, you know, you get a branch, a branch, a branch, a branch, almost like the way a pine tree is set up. Each one is a little bit longer. And then if you rotate it, it's just all four sides of that way. You got, you know, branches like pine trees on it. So this is my favorite growth habit. You can really pack them together, and you can put the next one where, you know, this point sticking out here on the other plant would go into this notch right here, and you can basically just stack them in. So that's the next one. As soon as it's as tall as the top of this thing here, it'll go into the flowering area. That's a super silver haze, so that's going to be a good one. I really, really like the super silver haze a lot, and I haven't flowered one of these in a while. So right now it's still vegging, and it's doing really well. It looks good, nice and green. So far, it doesn't look like it has any goddamn bugs on it, so that's why I've got it separated. It's not in the actual vegging area. The vegging area is where the damn mites are right now. So this is separated. It's just sitting over here under its own little light. And when it's ready, it's going to go into its own tent. And we'll see in 2 months or so, 2.5 months, what I get off of it. But I should get quite a bit of weed off of that one if it stays looking as good as it is. And, you know, is growing as vigorously as it is. And it's just, I'm going to get a lot of weed off of that one. Even if it, you know, when it's done total, it'll be maybe up to my chest, you know, from the floor up. But I'll get ounces of weed off of that. That super silver haze has really nice big buds on it. Wham! Nailed it again, Dave. Oh, you got a few tanks there, Daniel. Not a lot of fragrance on that right now. They don't really start putting out a lot of smell until they start flowering. That's when that fragrance really opens up. Now, if I was in there trimming it and I was cutting leaves off of it and stuff, and we were really bruising it and breaking leaves and the juice was coming out, you'd get a little bit of the marijuana smell. But that real fragrance that you're thinking about, that doesn't really come into play until the plants are well into their flowering cycle. And even like the one I've got, the most noticeable, they all change over time as it matures. That fragrance will change, but the most notable is the Blue Dream. The Blue Dream has a really odd, almost unpleasant, medicine-y sort of smell, almost a chemical-y kind of smell. I don't know. I don't really like the way the Blue Dream smells while it's growing. But about 2 weeks before it's ripe, it suddenly starts changing, and in the last 10 days or so, it goes from smelling unpleasant to being one of the most amazing smelling weeds. Like Blue Dream is just, I bought it because of the way, you know, I've gotten the vape pens and stuff like that. And everything I've ever gotten that was Blue Dream is just, the fragrance is incredible. I love it. I've even gotten Blue Dream terpenes to flavor my own stuff before. So when I started growing it and it smelled weird and stunk, I was like, what the fuck? I thought that, you know, and then right at the end, like completely changes smell and just turns into this amazing, like, oh my God, that's what I'm talking about. So the last, to me, there's like two really important points during growing. Obviously, everything's important. You want to have a good root system, and you know, it's important not to have bugs on them and all that. But the phase you don't want to skimp at is when it's almost done and you're really anxious. It's your first grow, and your plants. Be patient. That you have no idea how much difference that last couple of few days makes when it's almost there, but not quite. Between there and done, it might put a third more weight on, and the fragrance will change completely. Really let it finish. The last bit of it ripening is the important part of it ripening. That's when all the fucking good stuff happens. And then after that, Don't just dry some out and smoke it. You can if you want, but if you really want to wait and do it right, dry it properly, cure it for 3 weeks to a month, and then it'll be ready to smoke. It's really important to go through that curing process. Now, if you're going to do other things, like if you're going to do an extraction or you're just getting hash or something, you can do that right away if you want. If you're going to be smoking the bud like I am in this jar, this has been sitting in a jar since the 11th of April. And it's just now starting to wake up. And so it hasn't been quite a month, but it's been about 3 weeks since it dried. So I cut it down, I let it dry for about 10 days, and then on April 11th, it went in the jar, and it's been another 3 weeks in the jar, and it's just now getting, waking up. The fragrance is really starting to come. The flavor is really starting to open up. If you're going to smoke it, you got to cure it. It's just, trust me, it's really the way to do it is to cure it properly, and you will thank me because you'll get a much, much better smoke off of it. If you just dry some out immediately and start smoking it, you'll get plenty high. It'll just be harsh on your throat. The flavor won't be there. It won't be a pleasant experience. It'll get you high, but that's what it'll do. It'll get you high. If you want to really enjoy the weed, you just spent all this time growing and everything, just be patient. If you come that far, give it that extra couple of weeks and just let that fragrance open up for you and let it cure properly, and it'll just make a huge difference. It really will. All right, speaking of which, let me do another hit here real quick. That's my last little chunk that I pulled out of the jar, but well, that's actually a pretty big one. Let's break that in half. Let's do that in two. We'll probably do that in three, but we'll do it in two. Yeah, we'll do it in two. All right, let me see where I was. Well, somewhere back here. There I was. Seven Skittles. I've got a Skittles growing right now. I actually just put it in my other flowering tent. There probably was a bug on it. I'm not sure what you're asking there, Mandarin. But it does look good. I do have planted substrate, so I don't put tabs in there, but I do have the planted substrate. Well, Blue Dream and Jamaican Pineapple Skunk sounds like it would be amazing. You working to grow. Nice. What did I ask? Because you're asking whether I'm talking to you or not. I must have asked something. I don't remember what I asked now. I got distracted by Arknight's comment, but Arknight has nailed it. I used to, back in the day, when I first started growing around 2007, I struggle now with money and work and all that kind of stuff, but I am much, much better off now than I was back in 2007 when I was really struggling with alcoholism and mental illness and all sorts of things. And so I've seldom had money, and I always had to scrape up money to buy weed. And at the time, it was $50 or $60 for an eighth. It was good stuff, but that was right around the time when BC Nugs, like I had been first introduced to them. Prior to that, I bought weed, And sometimes you got good weed, sometimes it wasn't as good, but it always had seeds and sticks and all that stuff in it. It was just weed, you know. And then I moved out here and started buying the BC Nugs, which didn't have any seeds in it. That was the first time I'd ever really smoked a Sinsemilla. And it was expensive as shit. I went from $25 an eighth for weed to $50 or sometimes $60 an eighth, depending on what was for sale. Like AK-47s would come around. That was always $60 for an eighth. So I would do like an eighth and try to get it to last me an entire week. And you go at $60 a week when you don't have any money. $60 a week is a lot of goddamn money. And this was back in 2007 money, 2005, you know. Can you imagine me trying to get through a week on an eighth? I can't get through a day on that much weed. And so it was a very different lifestyle living like that. And in 2007, for reasons I don't need to get into, I just decided I was going to start growing. Nothing nefarious. I just decided that it wasn't as risky as I thought it was, things I had seen. And so I decided I was going to give it a shot. And I actually started growing. I'll show you my very first grow area. I set up in this closet right here. I don't know. Yeah, the door's not on the hinge, so it's not going to slide. But there's a shelf in the middle there. I'm trying to be quiet because we're right under the bedroom right now. My wife is definitely in bed. I just heard her go to sleep. So there's a shelf in there, and I put a partition down the middle, and I had one side for vegging, and the other side I put 4 little curly Q compact fluorescent lights. And that was my first grow area. And I grew underneath of the little compact fluorescent curly Q lights. I grew plants that were about a foot tall, and it wasn't great. And I didn't get a huge amount. I didn't know anything about curing it, but I got weed that I could smoke, and it got me high. And I was able to stop buying weed in 2006 or 2007 when I started growing. Well, I guess it probably was 2006 when I started growing. Maybe around there. And so if you think about it, even if I only stayed at the rate of $60 a week, or even just say $50 a week from 2007 to now, that's a lot of fucking money I've saved over the years. And when you consider how much weed I've actually consumed, rather than the $50 a week, it'd be more like $50 every few hours on some days. I mean, the amount of weed that is condensed into my hash oil right there. When I do one giant fucking dab like that, that's probably the amount of stuff I get off of like an entire joint's worth of weed, or 4 or 5 big fat bong hits worth of weed is probably one single dab. And I do that all day long. You know, when I started growing, I was taking, you know, I'd take a bud that big and I'd break that into 3 pieces. I'd try to get that to last me through the afternoon, you know, because again, I had an eighth and I had to make that last me as long as, if I could get more than a week out of it, that was even better. I usually only got a few days out of it, even when I stretched it out as much as I could. But those were some rough times. I think about that often, how nice it is. It just, I don't take it for granted. Believe me, I don't. I feel like I'm spoiled where I just have all the weed I want. Again, to me, that's a tiny little bit of weed. I would consider, if that's all I had, which is not by any means all I have, I would consider myself pretty much out of weed if that's all I had. When I started growing, if I had that much weed and it was that quality, that good, Jesus Christ, I'd be fucking rolling around naked on the floor and throw this up in the air on top of me. I think, thinking I'd struck the lottery or something if I had that much weed back then. And now I would consider that being out of weed if that's all I had. Times do change. Well, I didn't quite kill that, but we're not going to go in for the seconds on it because I got close enough. That second one ain't going to be good. Oh, it's begging me to hit it, though. I'm going to do it. I'm going to regret it, but I'm going to do it. Ugh. God, that was nasty. What did I just say? All right, well, that was the end of that. So now I got to get some more out. You know what? We're going to get something different this time. Then I'll come back in and read my comments. I also happen to have some purple kush, and this should be cured by now too. Oh, man, I have 2 jars of it, but this is the older jar. This one went in on the 13th. No, this one says the 11th. I wonder when I put that Poochie Love in. No, this is the 13th. So this is my purple kush. And this is really good stuff too. The purple kush has really, really orange hairs on it for some reason. Don't know why they call it purple kush. I haven't seen anything purple about it. None of the leaves look purple. The buds don't look purple when they grow, but it does get that really, really orange hair on it. The fragrance is just awesome on that too. That's some really good stuff. So we'll pull a bud out of there. That's a couple little scraggly ones stuck to a larger one. So we'll pull that out. We'll smoke on that for a while. So I've got 2 jars pretty much like this of purple kush plus the other ½ ounce of the Poochie Love. I told you I set that aside. I've got a few jars of sugar leaf just for rolling joints. If you grow yourself and you don't already do this, when you trim, trim all your food and fan leaves and all that stuff off, get them all out of the way and trim it all the way down to just the buds with all the sugar leaves sticking through. And then trim all those sugar leaves off and save the sugar leaf separately. Let it dry, let it cure, and use that for rolling joints. It's just the right consistency. It sticks together just the right way. It's more like shredded weed than the ground up stuff. A lot of people try to roll joints with stuff they run through a grinder. You can do it, but it's not as easy as like shredded stuff. There's a reason they shred tobacco. They don't grind it. And while it's really potent, it's not the same as smoking ground bud. And you can roll a nice fat joint and actually smoke it. You get high as nuts and your lips will be numb by the time you get to the end of it, but you can get through it rather than when you smoke a joint that's bud and you take 4 or 5 hits off of it, you're kind of done. That kind of ruins the whole point of smoking a joint. You want to be able to smoke the joint. And if you roll it with sugar leaves, it'll just be a great joint. You'll really enjoy it. So do that. You also get a lot of flavor out of the sugar leaves. And it won't taste leafy at all. It'll taste like the weed. Man, that's a more scraggly bud than I realized. We might have to get another piece of this, but we'll see. Let's do this big hit first. That's a lot. That's going to be at least 2. That is, wow. Damn, that shit's potent too. That's packed more of a punch than that fucking Poochie Love did. God damn. Not quite there yet. A little rough on the throat. The flavor's starting to be there. I could actually taste that. That tasted really good, but it's a little fucking rough on the throat, a little harsh. So that's not quite there yet. All right, Mandarin, you're probably already gone, but I will see you. No, Bob, you cannot unless you pay extra for that. Where I live is paradise. Roll a blunt with my elbows. I can roll good joints, but I don't like blunts, and I've never rolled a blunt, and I never intend to roll a blunt. Oh, that's a neat idea. Now, using fish water, especially in a situation like that where it's literally directly under your tank, using fish water for the vegging, I would be down for that. The vegging to me is a lot less important. I know there's some people that think the vegging stage is the really important part because you got to have all this like primo stock, and it makes sense. But to me, it's almost like the argument between what's more important, a better stereo system or better speakers. You know, do really good speakers make up for a lower quality stereo, or does a higher quality stereo compensate for lower quality speakers? I'm a speakers guy. I think better speakers make it the sound better. But there are other people out there. I do believe Christopher, if he's still with us, is the stereo guy. He thinks the equipment makes the sound better, and you can get by with cheaper speakers. So this is sort of the same thing. Do you put more focus and attention on really good vegging and really focused on vegging? Now, obviously, ideally, you probably want to focus really a lot on both. But for me, the getting it up and ready to go and getting it into the flowering stage is, you know, as long as it's there and it's healthy, I'm not too worried about getting it there. Once it's in the flowering, then I put it under good quality lighting and I give it plenty of food, and you know it's got lots of circulation and air blowing around and fans on it. I treat the flowering stage of it much more seriously than I treat the vegging stage of it. But not everybody does. I smoked off screen for a long time, but I've looked at YouTube's rules regarding marijuana many times, and I can't find anything that says I can't smoke on screen. I've been doing this for years. I've never been flagged for it. I've been flagged twice. Once was an AI flagged my content for being dangerous. Had nothing to do with weed at all. Again, it's just AI bullshit. It probably if I had to guess, it probably saw me holding this up and assumed there was a gun in the video, which I probably shouldn't have just done that. But it's my torch, you know, it's not a gun at all. But AI would see that and say this video's got guns in it. But it didn't flag me for guns. That's its own thing. It flagged me for dangerous behavior, basically behavior that a child might imitate and hurt themselves doing is what it flagged me for. And it was for my private non-monetized members only live stream. It was a limited viewing audience, and I got flagged saying that I should have labeled that as an adult video. I didn't contest it because I don't give a fuck, but I did get a strike for that. And then the other time I got a strike was I did a live stream again for my members only, but we went over into my lab, and the whole entire video was how I start from weed and I make it into my hash oil. We went through the whole process, the vacuum purging and all of it. And I got flagged for that, saying it was an adult video. I should have marked it 18 and only. I would make these 18 and only, but if I do, there's no chat. You can't comment. You can only watch. And so I just do them as not 18 only. And I don't do too much on the weed. I try not to anyway. And so as far as I can tell, what the rules are on YouTube is as long as I am not a gaming channel, which I'm not, as long as I'm not a gaming channel, I can talk about marijuana. I can smoke marijuana because I'm an adult. It's legal. It's no different than me smoking a cigarette or drinking a beer. It's just an age-restricted product that as an adult I'm allowed to consume. And so me drinking a beer on a video would be no different than me doing a bong hit on a video by technical standards. Now, if the video is focused or oriented around weed, that's a different story. If I'm describing how to manufacture, produce, grow, make, any of that stuff, that has to be 18 and only. Or again, if the main chief topic of the video is about marijuana, then it has to be 18 or only. If the chief topic of my videos are about my fish and my water changes and feeding the fish and everything, but I happen to smoke weed while we're doing it and I talk about it a lot, that's okay. I'm allowed to do that according to the rules. When I did look up to find out why I got flagged on the last one where the AI flagged me, I read their marijuana policy there, and they said that I would have gotten a strike against me if I had been promoting a dispensary. And I've never promoted a dispensary. I have talked about dispensaries, but I never named them. I never, speak about the name of the dispensary, and I'm not promoting them. I usually badmouth them because I hate the fucking places. I mean, it's cool. I'm always imagining 13-year-old Dan, or 14-year-old Dan, and how I used to sit there with my buddies and fantasize about the future one day. Can you imagine what it'd be like to go in a store and just buy weed and now that I can, I sit around and bitch about the places because of, capitalism and, all that kind of stuff. So it's funny how the world works and how things turn out. But yeah, I don't know why I got a strike for that. But technically, to get back to your query, I am, as far as I know, allowed to smoke weed as long as that's not the chief thing we're doing, and it's not, because we're looking at fish. See the fish? You hear me talking about fish? I'm talking about fish now. Cheers, everybody. We got that one in 2, and I really could have done that one in 1.5. I got a lot of that one on the first one. Blah. That ended a little rough. I definitely don't think we're gonna get any more out of there. In fact, I think I'm gonna put this bud back in there. This definitely is a little too rough on the throat. This one's not done yet. We'll go back to my Poochie Love. Oh, I do have some purple kush that is cured. Hang on. Oh, that's Poochie Love. That's from way back. Oh, I got some Hawaiian Puff. Let's hit on some Hawaiian Puff. And I will also show you this. That is Hawaiian Puff. It's not worth looking at, but that's a little bit of that. We can smoke on that. This is what I was talking about. This is Wicked Space, but this is Wicked Space Sugar Leaf. And you see how it's more like a shredded kind of material than a ground material. That is just absolutely perfect for rolling joints. So if you're a joint smoker and you grow, you got to save your sugar leaf. Again, I'm sure if you're a joint smoker that grows, oh man, that smells awesome. That Wicked Space is a really good one too. So anyway, if you're a joint smoker that grows for yourself, you definitely want to save your sugar leaf separately. This is another one of my favorites. I've actually been growing off of the same plant. I've been cloning this Hawaiian Puff for, 10 years now, maybe. I don't know. Oh, it smells so good. Probably about 10 years I've been growing off the same plant. I thought about letting it die off at one point because I could always just buy more seeds or something. I got it as a freebie when I bought some other seeds. They threw in a 3-pack of Hawaiian Puff. It's the Lucky 13 seed company. No, was it Lucky 13? I think it was Lucky 13. Anyway, whoever it was, they sent a freebie just as like, here, you can try these Hawaiian Puffs to see if you like them. And I really did. And I kept one of them alive. I kept the, going and so on and so forth. Hang on. Let me get to my next part of my story here. I didn't realize what I was doing. I stuffed all of that in here. So we're going to try to see how much of that we can hit. I pulled enough out. I thought I was going to get a few hits off of it, but apparently we're just going to do one. Definitely going to do more than one. That Hawaiian Puff is good shit. Very, very heady though. The elevator goes way up. There's no body buzz to it at all. I usually don't smoke the Hawaiian Puff after like 8 o'clock at night. It's literally weed that will make it hard for you to get to sleep. You'll want to get up and go do something after you smoke Hawaiian Puff. It's fucking awesome. I love it. I hate weed that gives me couch lock and makes me feel drowsy. It's nice having some of that for when I need it, like as medicinally to get to bed. But I don't like, I struggle with motivation and all that to begin with. So any weed that like I'm sitting around and I get high, and instead of continuing to sit around, I get bored and I want to go out in the yard and do stuff or go out on the kayak. That's my kind of weed. And that's what Hawaiian Puff does for me. It's just awesome. It's the best. So when I got it, and started growing it. I kept the one plant alive for the long time. And when I was thinking about letting it go, I read a little bit about it again. And it usually has a very sativa growth pattern. It's very leggy. It's, branchy, doesn't have really big buds on it. But they said there's two phenotypes. There's that one, which is the common phenotype. But they said if you get one that comes out more like an indica, that's like short and stocky and dense and really bushy, they said, hang on to that one. That's the good one. That's the one you want. And that's the one I've got. That My Hawaiian Puff is so compact and dense, you'd think it was a Kush plant when you looked at it, except it's gorgeous. It's got like reds and yellows in it. It's a fucking beautiful plant. But it's really, really compact and dense. And so that's the one I've got. And so when I read that, I was like, well, fuck, I'm not taking a chance on, buying another batch of seeds and like trying all 10 of them and they all come out all branchy and leggy. So since I've got the one that is the good one, I've just been making cuttings of it and just keeping it rolling this whole time. I've just never let it die off. And the Wicked Space is another one that's just really a good plant. I really like a lot. I've probably had the Wicked Space going for 5 or 6 years now or something like that. It's been a while. All right. Let me see where I am. Right there, rolling a blunt with my elbows. Oh, you should totally drive a speedboat in that canal, Zini. Three strikes is called a turkey. All right, well, if you get in trouble, don't blame me. I'm just telling you what I read and the way I interpreted it. You might want to go double check and reread their policy yourself. I may have misinterpreted it, but I've been doing this for years and no one has I've never gotten a complaint. I've never had someone, from YouTube contact me and just say, hey, heads up, you're not really allowed to do that. Nothing. I've just not gotten nothing from it. Again, the one video, it literally was me in my lab. It was a 3-hour live stream of me making, hash oil and like with lab equipment and shit. Fair enough. I didn't complain about that one because I deserved that strike. The last one I got, though, the AI strike, I got the impression that it didn't actually count against my channel. They were basically just saying, look, we marked it as 18 only. You don't have to do anything, or you can contest it. But it didn't say, like, that's a strike against your channel. When I got the strike before, it said it's a strike against your channel, and it'll go away in 6 months. But if you get 2 more within the next 6 months, we shut your channel down. It just goes away. So I laid really low for the next 6 months until that strike dropped off. This time I didn't get that notification. So I got the impression, this is just me thinking how this probably works. I don't know how it works in your state, but in Maryland, if you get a ticket from like a speed camera, or you run a toll or something like that. Well, the tolls are a little different, so never mind about the tolls. We don't have toll booths here in Maryland anymore. They're all just drive through, whether you have Easy Pass or not. They just have a camera. But back in the day, you could run a toll. If you get one of those kind of tickets, it's just a fine. There's no points associated with it that go on your license and affect your insurance and all that kind of stuff. The reason being is they can't tell whether I'm driving the car or not. Somebody else might be driving my car. And so just like a parking ticket isn't a moving violation, but if you parked my car illegally as the owner of the car, the ticket goes to my account. And so when you drive through one of these speed cameras, it's the same type of thing. The ticket goes to my account, but it's just a monetary fine. There's no points associated with my driver's license. It's not a moving violation per se. Because there's no way to prove that it was really me. So I assume that YouTube's doing something similar because they're clearly using AI. I looked into why I got the strike against me, and that was the reason. They said we use AI to determine. Basically, the first level is AI. If their machine learning decides you've done something wrong, it flags you. It doesn't give you a warning. It doesn't give somebody else a warning. Hey, come check this out. It just boom, it hits you and says 18 only. You're now restricted on this video. And if you want to argue with that, you can have a human look at it and review it. But that's all it says. It doesn't say anything about this counts against your channel, or there's a time limit before the strike is off, or you don't get it. It doesn't say any of that. It just says it's just age restricted from here on out. If you're cool with that, you don't have to do anything else. But if you think we made a mistake, you contact us, let us know, we'll look at it. So I think they're doing sort of the same thing. They know that that AI is so unreliable and probably flags so many people falsely that they don't start. They start by sort of making it 18 only, or they might demonetize it or something like that. But they're not going to put a strike against your channel until they really truly have determined you violated their terms or their conditions or something. I personally don't give a shit. It was a members only that I go in a running stream, and I haven't done it in a while, but I usually go back about a month, and I delete all my live streams before that because they're live streams. If you weren't here, you get a month or so maybe to watch some old live streams and stuff. After that, they're gone. I don't save them. I don't keep them on the channel. So in probably tonight, now that I've thought about it, I'll go back in, and that whole video will just get deleted anyway. So I don't give a shit. But I think that's probably why it didn't specifically say this is a strike against your channel like it very clearly did before. It made it 100% clear. You get 2 more of these and your channel fucking disappears. There was none of that in the language on this latest strike. So I don't think it was a strike necessarily. But anyway, read for yourself. Don't go by what I say. Oh, pumpkin seeds. They're my favorite. Oh, fall fish are pretty cool too. I used to keep some sunfish in my 125 down there. I don't know if you saw it earlier. It had some native fish in it. It's got other fish. I call it my New World tank because it's mostly North and South American fish. There are a couple other oddballs from around the world in there now, but I don't give a shit. I don't even call it that anymore. I call it my other 125, Daryl. But I used to have a sunfish in there. That was the last of my big native fish. And then I had some gambusia. In fact, I still have one last living gambusia in that tank from like years ago. I can't believe it's still alive. And then those little minnows you saw in this tank and that tank are caught native around here. Excuse me. Burping on you. Out at the reservoir where I go kayaking, I caught all those little minnows. And when I caught them, they were just tiny, tiny little things. Like they literally could have been measured in millimeters. They were so small. They were just like little shiny speckles moving around in the water. And I scooped a whole shitload of them up. I think I got 3 different species. I definitely got some gambusia. I got those larger ones that have the white tips on their fins. And then I got some smaller fish that looks like a shiner, but is much, much smaller than the white tipped ones. But that's cool that you keep native fish. That's a fun part of the hobby, I think. Not a lot of people do it. All right, Christopher. Well, it's 10:30 already. I guess I'm going to start winding down myself. But I've never kept Oscar before. I do think they're gorgeous fish. But as you can tell, I like community tanks with lots of fish in them and everything. And I've just never really associated Oscars with the kind of fish that you'd have a lot of other fish in the tank with at all, chilling and hanging and peacefully getting along like most of my fish do. I get some little squabbles, but nothing serious. All right, I gotta stop smoking this crap. My lungs are definitely not used to smoke. That's rough. Hey, Eric, what doesn't he pay for? That's awesome. I got a buddy. I'm going to have to tell that one to tomorrow. Oh, I sure did zoom into the discus. I picked up my phone was sitting underneath. Where are you? My phone was sitting underneath of my tablet. When I picked up the tablet, it zoomed in, but that was completely by accident. But it was a good shot. I got a good I got a good tap right there on the discus. Let's do that again. Actually, now that I've thought about it, because they are looking pretty good right now, aren't they? Yeah, I wish I'd get some goddamn George Soros money for all the shit I do. You think somebody pay me for some of it? Nope. Still waiting. Maybe it's going to trickle down. Maybe that's the way it works. I did zoom into my shiny dome a little bit while I was leaning over. Nope, that's my face. There we go. That's my shiny dome. I love this app. All right, everybody. We're going to start winding down. So if you have any last thoughts, we're not there yet. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, when I say I'm starting to wind down, that means we've probably got a half an hour to go. And that's if somebody doesn't get me running off on some tangent talking about something. But hopefully we're not going to go for them that much longer, because I really am running out of shit to talk about here. It's funny, my app is still tracking my face, even though I've got the box zoomed in on where the fish are, but the app is still keeping track of where my face is. The things they think about these days. I watch a lot of Doctor Who. If you're not familiar with me, because I talk about Doctor Who a lot, but I watch classic Doctor Who, and I'm really not that crazy about the new stuff. I could talk about that for a few minutes if you wanted. The difference between the old and the new, and how I feel about the two, because that's a very hot topic from a lot of people. Oh, that's interesting. I always liked the fall fish. I had something really similar. It died recently, but I had it for about 7 years. It was a white suckerfish. It was about 9 inches long when it died. It was, I don't know, maybe an inch and a half to 2 inches in diameter at its belly. It was a chunky little boy. But that died fairly recently. I don't like how that discus is looking at you either. Look at that fucking thing. He's definitely giving you some hairy eyeball. God damn. You are talking about this one, right? Oh, he swam away when he saw me pointing at him. Now he looks like now this one's giving me the fucking hairy eyeball. Look at it. He was. He had eyes like Zenie's gimlet eyes. Oh, look, photobombing the damn discus is my legendary rainbow fish now. Exactly. Art, you look at Zenie, look into Zenie's eyes, he'll stare into your soul and burn a fucking hole right out the other side of it. You'll never be the same. It is a life-changing experience. Anyway, I watch a lot of old Doctor Who, and I'm not going to get into talking about the differences between the Doctor Who's, unless somebody wants me to, but you got to ask me to talk about that before I get into it. It's a service you provide. But I grew up watching Doctor Who, and that, my friends, is the important part of the story. I watch those episodes now, like I remember watching them when I was a kid, and it just takes me back to when I was a kid in the 70s watching Doctor Who. And I think about life back then versus life now, and it's kind of weird. I always used to think about like my grandmother and like, oh, the changes she's seen, the changes I've seen are mind blowing, but I've seen them. Like I've lived through them, and that's like why the weed store is not that big a deal. It like happened slowly, and eventually it, and then it was kind of there one day, and I'd already been growing it for myself for years and years. So, I don't know. It wasn't like when I was a kid. I just thought, like it would be like there one day, and you could just go in the store, or it would be like taking a trip to Amsterdam where you could go in a hash bar or something. But it happened gradually, and it just sort of I saw those changes happen. If I think about the 70s, and then I think about what a modern video game is, it's like Jesus Christ, that's more real looking than real life. But I remember the Atari 2600, and I remember Pong, and I remember and I've watched it evolve over the decades, and so it's not shocking like it kind of should be if you actually stop and think about it. And so whenever I'm fiddling with little gadgets like this, and I can make my phone expand, or I can tap somewhere and zoom in. Oh, look at that. That's a good shot of mustache and beard. It always just takes me back to that being a kid in the 70s and watching the Doctor Who stuff and all of their high-tech spacey gadgets and whatnot. They're laughable now. Their tiny little secret communication devices are this big, and they hide it up underneath of something. Or they'll use some secret tiny little microscope, and it's this giant fucking machine on the side of the wall. It's just funny to think about what people thought the future was going to be like, or they thought high tech was going to be like, versus the example I use is I walk around the house watching my Doctor Who on this wafer thin little, I do my banking on like they couldn't have dreamed of something like this in Doctor Who, and again, the world I'm living in is more advanced than all the fucking future worlds I used to watch when I was a kid. It's just kind of weird. Especially when you get really high and you really stop and spend a lot of time thinking about it. It does start to get extra strange. Anyway, having this little gadget here is what threw me down that train of thought. Yeah, I don't want to go through all that work to try to get a fish to work in my tank. If I ever did like a species only tank and an Oscar was available, yeah, Star Trek was pretty good. I still think they missed quite a lot on a lot of stuff. And honestly, with Star Trek, it's almost the other way around. It's strange that Doctor Who never had this thing. Well, Doctor Who didn't have as many gadgety kind of things, and the stuff they did was just so fantastical that it was, Gene Roddenberry had more of a scientific-y sort of mind, and so he went for stuff that was more science-y. There's a difference between science fantasy and science fiction. Science fiction is stuff that really scientifically could happen, but is fictional. If you wrote a book about, like a big dish that sent out waves that bounced off stuff and came back, and you wrote that in the 1920s, that would have been science fiction. It existed now, we have radar now, but back then it would have been fiction. So science fantasy is stuff that's sciencey, but is fantasy, like a lightsaber. It's a fantastical item. It can't exist, but it's in that science fantasy realm. A blaster that shoots and blows fucking holes in doors. That doesn't exist. It can't exist. It won't ever exist. It's science fantasy. So as far as science fiction goes, Star Trek was good science fiction. Gene Roddenberry really kept the stuff in that sort of realistic realm. And how many scientists have you heard that have discovered something or worked on something specifically because they saw it on Star Trek when they were a kid and then grew up and tried to make it? So it's not that Star Trek predicted the stuff. It's almost as though Star Trek set the agenda for like, this is the things you should learn how to build in the future. So I think Star Trek is probably almost unique in that sense. I can't think of any other show that more directly has impacted real world developments and stuff that we use than Star Trek. It's crazy. Not even Star Wars. I'm holding the wrong thing. I keep holding my stupid phone up, and I gotta have my tablet here. All right, MP. I will talk to you later. You should subscribe or join the channel if you want. I do private members only live streams on Wednesday for $2.99 a month. You get access to all of it. And there's a Discord server and a bigger community at large. If you're interested, so that's $2.99 a month. If you're not, I do Fridays and Sundays 8 p.m. Publicly for everybody, and then every now and again I do the odd spur of the moment. So make sure you're subscribed at the very least. That's free. All right, everybody, we're down to 21 people, which is about par for the course. Replicator. I use the holodeck all the time. And I'll just let you guess what I use it for. Use it for what they'd be using it for in Star Trek. All that bullshit of going back into the Old West and whatnot. That's not what anybody would use that fucking holodeck for, and you know it. All right, I'm done with the smoking of the weed, so let's put the weed smoking stuff in the other room. And we will do another hit off of my hash oil here. All right, everybody. Last thoughts, last words, etc., etc. Anything going on? It's supposed to rain all weekend, so I'm probably not going to have very good kayak stories, but we'll see. I didn't look too closely at it. I just saw rain on Friday or Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but it could be something like afternoon showers or something like that. So if it's a 20% chance of afternoon showers, that's not going to stop me necessarily from going out on the kayak, but we'll see. All right, Ark, you had to get that last one in. All right. I'm going to call that the last word. I'll let you have the last word there, Art. All right, everybody. I hope you had a good time tonight, and I will see you all on Sunday. So thank you, and good night.